we do welcome you all this morning or this afternoon. I will just start by saying we are recording, so you're aware of this. And this is just to be able to share the information and the discussions and the presentations after this session or this event. So we are recording. It's important for us to let you know. And by that, we say welcome. My name is Lydia Partheni, and I'm a project manager at IVL, the Swedish Environmental Research Institute. And as part of my role at IVL, I also represent Shift Sweden and work in the project as an innovation strategist. And together with Emma Shepherdson, we are primarily focusing on the internationalization of our program. And I will let you introduce yourself as well, Emma. So please.
Hi, welcome back, everyone. Many of you we saw last, our first community of learning on the 1st of April. My name's Emma Shepherdson, and I represent the organisation VREF, so Volvo's Research and Education Foundation, in the Shift Sweden Impact Innovation Programme.
Excellent. So as Emma just said, we would like to welcome you to join us at this event today. It's our commitment and our collaboration and shared mission of driving place-based innovation and living labs, which is the focus of today's event, that bring us here today. And we are delighted to see that many of you have attended our first event and are back for our second. The response has been excellent. We are very happy for the engagement. And the only thing I could say by that is that it shows how important it is to have those discussions and being here today. With that, I will let Emma just briefly introduce Shift Sweden. We believe that you might know what it is by now, but please, Emma, just very quickly, a short presentation.
Yes. Yeah, sure. Just a few words. Shift Sweden, for those of you who don't know, it's a mission-driven national innovation program here in Sweden, and we're working on joining together the built environment and mobility for a fossil-free future. And our mission is, Carl Martin, if you take the next slide, here we are. We are transforming Sweden, fossil-free and resource-conscious, into attractive and accessible living spaces for all. So here we see it's a Swedish program, but it's not something that we can do as a small country on our own. So we need our international partners to learn to do this together. And that's why we want to work on seeing how we can scale up, learn from what's happening overseas, and connect our national program to the global community. Shift Sweden works on 3 shifts, which are here we see going from resource-intense linear construction processes to circular business models. We also see we need to move from unsustainable transportation to what we're calling a new freedom reform, with competitive alternatives to the individual car travel. Often the car is seen in Sweden, in any case, it is seen as freedom. And we want to change what is freedom in mobility. And moving from working in silos around the built environment and mobility to working together in the same system for innovation. And what we really want to do is we're taking a place-based approach here, and we'll be testing and demonstrating how we can do this in 100 places over the next 10 years. And the challenge is then to take these place-based learnings and then develop the methodology to strengthen systematic change through it. So we're testing something called a transition lab, grouping different projects in order to better aggregate the learnings. So that's where you can see today's theme and what we've been working around, how living labs and placemaking methods fit very well in with the mission of Shift Sweden. And we're really looking forward to continuing this discussion and hearing your opinions today.
So we will get on with our second phase, and just a short introduction to the theme that we are going to talk today about placemaking and living labs. But we, of course, there are a lot of different methods and tools that are possible to discuss. And we would like to see you doing even that in the discussion groups that will be randomly again into breakout rooms after the presentations. And by this, we would like to introduce our first speaker of today. We have stated in our program today that we will have 3 different speakers, but unfortunately, due to illness, we will have 2 presenters, 2 speakers that will cover living labs and placemaking, and will give us a little bit more time to have the discussions after the presentation. So that is not, but we'll just go on with that. So Fredrik Lindstål is an international based placemaker with focus on city and urban planning, culture and social innovation, and he will take us on in an international journey of placemaking from different contexts around the globe. You're a member of Placemaking Europe and founder of Glad Stad, Happy City, and former deputy mayor of the City of Stockholm. So, Fredrik, today you will introduce placemaking as a method for place-based innovation and the principles of a quicker, lighter, and cheaper. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much for a fantastic introduction. I will start by getting the technicalities out of the way, make sure we have a presentation that I'm sharing, and making it larger, hopefully. I hope you guys can see the presentation now.
Perfect, thank you.
Fantastic. So my name is Fredrik Lindstål. I'm a Stockholm-based placemaker, and it took me a long time to say that I was a placemaker because it's an elusive concept, to say the least. But hopefully we have a little bit more of an understanding of the concept once we finish today. So I have a pretty broad background. I'm an economist by academia, and I was working as a journalist for a very long time. But I've been on the inside of municipality and on the outside as a cultural organizer. I was the deputy mayor of Stockholm for a time, and I was also the chairman of the boards of the ports of Stockholm, so I handled all the sea traffic. I was also chairman to the board of the companies that run our large arenas here in Stockholm, the Globe and Tele2. And I've been working with mobility quite a bit through, among other things, I helped start what was called M for Volvo, which was the car sharing service. It was meant to be started in the States and was also a part of the Hudson Yards project there. But I'm going to walk you through my little journey of sort of how I came about starting this. But my platform today is in placemaking is I work with Placemaking Europe as a member of the board there. We have just started a national network here in Sweden, but I'm also engaged in various networks across the world, for example, through Placemaking India, which is my birth country. And what we do in those networks is we engage in different ways, primarily with municipalities, and we are the voice of practitioners. And the idea is, how do we introduce placemaking as a tool to create systemic change? So I'll walk you through sort of my journey of how I came about working with these issues. About 12, 13 years ago, I was living in the south central area in Stockholm, where there used to be a really vibrant street market. But when I moved there, a few years later, that market closed. And obviously, as a local, I missed having a market to go to. But also, I was realizing that the market was not only creating buzz over the weekend, the public spaces became safer, they became more used, and there were more smaller shops, cafes, etc. because of the influx of people over the weekend for this market. And I sort of asked myself, can you use a market as a tool to create this sort of attraction, community engagement, etc.? So I started a market here, and it's been running now for 10 years. And I think even the first couple of years, you saw a shift in the community, where you really saw it more engaging. You saw shops reopening, small cafes reopening, and it completely changed the vibe of the neighborhood over the weekend. So I was thinking, like, is this something that you could copy? And I've been doing the same thing basically in Stockholm for a long time, where we look at space that's been discarded or closed down, and we add a set of initiatives to make them come to life. We do this through various disciplines, but culture is always at the heart. But it really is quite simple. We look at a space and we think, how can we make this space more attractive? So we're going to come back to this slide, but I wanted to sort of now talk about what makes a good place. And this is where I think academia and practitioners really meet, because you could ask anyone at any time what makes a great place. And this slide I borrowed through something called Project for Public Spaces, which is a fantastic international organization where they've really narrowed it down to what really creates a place. And I think if you look at a graph like this, you recognize why place-based initiatives are there, but they're definitely there for very different reasons. I think if you take safety, crime management, etc., that certainly is up there in terms of how municipals fund place-based initiatives, but it's a very small piece of the puzzle. So the way I work with spaces is that the first thing I really do is that when you have a place-based initiative, place needs to be very much narrowed down. It can't just be a city. It has to be an actual physical place that you can narrow down and completely understand. And then the next phase for me is always a stakeholder engagement and the common goal. And what I mean by stakeholder engagement, obviously you all know this, but this is really the heart of placemaking. This is where community comes in, but also where you get people around from different sectors, and you're not just going to get one goal in the room, but possibly you can have a shared vision and a shared goal. And once you have a shared goal, you can really start working. And the way I see a market or a cultural stage or better lighting, whatever it might be, is that this is a tool to realize that goal. And once you have a toolbox, you can start with the programming of the space, and then pretty much just implement and engage. And what I mean by engaging is that if you do not engage community, if you do not engage municipality, if you do not engage real estate, that will just be a project that will fade once you leave. So the engagement aspect of placemaking is very, very important. And then you evaluate and manage. And I think this is the trickiest part of placemaking, because the management of a space doesn't happen overnight. You build it up, and gradually you will see that this area needs to be managed, or it simply just goes away when the project is closed. And this is what placemakers mean when we talk about systemic change. So is placemaking a useful tool, and for whom? I think we heard through Emma in the introduction around mobility. Mobility, when it comes to the planning of any city, is tricky, especially how car-driven the narrative still is. So is it possible to say that you can close down a place like Times Square just overnight and everyone's happy about that? Certainly not. But you can use placemaking as an initiative to try things out, to change people's mind, to work with nudging campaigns. Maybe it's not the best suited place for a yoga session, but maybe it changes people's minds. And these are the kind of projects that I've been working with for the past couple of years. When the city of Tallinn phoned me a couple of years ago, they said they had a problem with wanting to attract more tourists from a certain sort of age group and span. They said they wanted a more culture-based experience, and they also wanted to see how placemaking can work and connect the two diasporas, so the Russian diaspora with the Estonian diaspora, where there is a lot of conflict still. And what that led to is that we started a festival ground in the space that you can see in front of you. So if you look to the right, it's actually an old concentration camp, and that later became a prison and closed in 2014. So only a couple of years after the prison closed, we were able to transform this fantastic place into a vibrant festival. And it's now a beach site. It's being used on a weekend base. And it's also a really good environment for locals to engage, because this is a very Russian area in Estonia, and it's worked really, really well. Can you use placemaking as a tool to stop leakage in tourism? And by leakage, I mean when you travel to poor countries or socioeconomically diverse countries, you see an influx of tourism and the economy of tourism going into the country, but you also see the same amount leaving the country. So what we did is that we started a surfing hotel in Sri Lanka, only for the sole benefit of trying out different methods to see if what we invested into the place could stay within the community. And we use simple placemaking tools for that. How do you create initiatives for more playgrounds in socioeconomically diverse areas where you simply don't know how to go about accessing the land and creating the systemic change for land? We weren't all that sure. So what we did was we founded a very large art festival. This is in India, where we would use discarded space throughout the areas of Mumbai. And we knew that we would be able to secure the space to create this art festival. And we also hoped that people would see that these areas could be used for different purposes. So through a young, engaging audience, we were able to conform these spaces into a festival of a day, but they've actually turned into more than 100 playgrounds now. So it's about creating a simple approach where everyone can get aboard and with a systemic horizon. I've had the privilege of using placemaking as a tool for religious freedom as well. I've spent more the latter part of last year and the year before in Saudi Arabia working with the NEOM project, which hopes to be the next generation of community and city building. And obviously Saudi Arabia has a long and tricky history when it comes to the openness of many issues, LGBTQ rights being one of them, but also freedom of religion. So how do you use a space-based approach to start talking about this issue? What happened was that we were able to create on paper, of course, but because this isn't built, shared spaces where religions can come together and to speak to the heads in the Vatican, speak to imams and get them in the room asking awkward questions, difficult questions, but through a place-based project approach. And everyone could in the room agree that the values for what creates a great space are not attached to religion in any way. It's attached to community. So coming into the sort of theory of placemaking, which it's actually quite simple. I keep coming back to this idea of lighter, quicker, cheaper. It takes a long time to create systemic change in the urban landscape. But if you use simple methods, if it happens quickly, and it doesn't really cost that much, chances are you're going to get more people on board. You're going to get more yes says than no says, because how hard can it be? How difficult can it be? And it's not the end of the world if it fails. And if it fails fast, and we can try and try again. And the idea is, of course, to create systemic change and more inclusive cities. And what I mean by inclusive cities is really have community building approaches to create this. And there are there's a lot of research going into this, but I want to stress a couple of things when it comes to this. And that is, the community knows best. And place-based initiatives are community-based initiatives. And it's about the place and not the design. It's not a drawing board administrative function. It's boots on the ground, go there and try it out. Design gets you through the door. It can help bring stakeholders together, but it doesn't take you all the way. Start simple. You can create a lot of change through very small initiatives. If you remember the yoga slide, for example, getting 200 people to do yoga on an open space has a great visual impact, but it's not that difficult. And never finish. This is imperative also when it comes to creating spaces, is that if you think that there's an end to the project, the space itself will never change. It will go back to what it was. I'm going to close off by just sharing one of the projects that I did to see like how you can create something different just by using quicker, lighter, cheaper approach. So we took this discarded area in Stockholm. We added 2 containers, and through a budget of roughly 5,000 euros, we were able to create this. And this was also a little bit of a nudging campaign, because we were able to go from 2 discarded container into creating a summer restaurant just across the pond from the city hall in Stockholm. And I think this is a fantastic example of how you can create a pop-up environment to start having a conversation about what the space can be used to. We were able to do this within 24 hours, not so much from a bureaucratic point of view, but what we see now is that this area is now part of the municipal planning for how you can engage with community to create more vibrant spaces. And that's pretty much what I wanted to talk to you about today. I'm leaving you with this one as a background, just to remind everyone with what creates a good place for me. And just finishing off by saying a place for me is somewhere where I can interact with friends and family and really feel like I belong. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Fredrik, for this inspirational and very important presentation. I will just quote
I kept it a little bit purposely light when it comes to placemaking theories. There are plenty out there, and I'll be happy to share great examples with you. But for now, I wanted to give you some Monday morning inspiration for changing places.
Great. As you said, lighter, quicker, cheaper, and a lot of creativity. I think it's that brings the community together, and the cooperation of doing things, sharing things, and using the place that is close to you to something very, very important to engage the whole community. Thank you so much for this. And for all of you, you can get information and get in contact with Fredrik. This is what we want. We stress that. It is community of learning. We want you to get together and discuss what you do and the issues around these themes and methods. And now it's time for our next speaker. Emma, would you like to introduce, or shall I do that?
I thought you were, Lydia.
Yes, okay. Sorry, I just needed to ask the question. Aneerudha Paul, our next speaker, who will actually talk to us about living labs. Aneerudha Paul is an architect and an urban planner. You're as well a technical consultant to SPARC, which is an organization that is dedicated to addressing the needs of the urban and rural poor. And you will today provide us with a mobility-focused living lab example that connects place and innovation for social sustainability. And in your role as a project lead for the Mumbai Living Lab of the PRISM project, you will, the Living Lab examines a shared autorickshaw transport ecosystem in the Mumbai Metropolitan Region. And this is focusing on the local community, and you will tell us about your work between mobility, informality, and livelihoods. So I will let you to it. The floor is yours to take us through your interesting and engaging presentation. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Lydia. And good morning and afternoon to all. Okay, so this project, I must tell you, is also funded by the VREF, and we are a part of a larger consortium of 7 living labs through the world. And our living lab, we call it Mapping the Unmapped. And to give you just a little background of this system, the next slide, the idea of these informal systems are that they are in the peripheries as far as every aspect is concerned, in the minds of the authorities. Like, they don't consider these as important systems that serve a lot of people. What they consider is that these are causes for congestion, these are causes for pollution. And though the cities in the global south, as we see this image, okay, most of them are actually served by these informal shared mobility systems. They're called in different names. They are also can be called paratransit, they can be called popular transport, and also they have got local names. Like in Mumbai, they're called autorickshaws, they're tuk-tuks, and in some places. So they're known by very clearly local names. And it's what has been seen that, like, most of them provide very important service, especially to the vulnerable communities. So that's something very, very important. And most of them are organized, self-organized. And that's why, like, when we want to understand them, we have to go through a process of mapping. We have to utilize methodologies of mapping, which are generally would not be used by formal techniques like by governments. The governments don't have much information on them. Okay, the next slide. Okay, so what we had done, let me tell you, we will share our experience, and we'll share you like 2 methods that we use to map these unmapped systems. One, we used a bottom-up engagement. And as Lydia has explained you and introduced also, that we come from SPARC. SPARC is an organization which works very closely with informal communities over and Mumbai and also other Indian cities. So over time, we have built trust with the communities. And this is something we believe is very important to map these systems in the periphery, because otherwise they don't just open up. They're not ready to share information about their system. You can call them in the boundaries, you can call them extra legal. So with that as the reason, they would not share information. But when you actually build trust, like you have worked with informal communities, they slowly start sharing information. They know that what we would like to do is something that would benefit them. So that's something. So one is we use the bottom-up engagement process, and we have used clearly digital tools to understand this complex system. Let me tell you why we had to use digital tools, because these are not schedule-driven systems. They don't have a schedule. They have a demand. It's a demand-driven system. So as the demand comes in with time, okay, they actually increase the numbers of these systems. So they are demand-driven systems. So to be able to map them becomes difficult. So, and we have used digital tools to be able to start mapping these complex systems. So these are the 2 processes which we use to actually carry on the mapping. The next. Okay, some visuals I'll show you of the system itself. First, let me tell you about the context of Mumbai. Okay, we have 20 million people here, nearly 26 now. Next, just go on playing the slide. Okay. So that's Mumbai city, which is the Mumbai Municipal Corporation. The region is much larger, as you can see. Okay, 26 million live here. Next, go on pressing the animation. Yeah. So what we are looking at one of the peripheral municipalities, as you can see, and most of these metropolitan region is connected by the suburban rail. So whether it be Mumbai Municipal Corporation and the Red Municipal Corporation, which is called Vasai Virar, where I stay, and where the Living Lab is, also is connected by the suburban rail. And as you see these dots of the suburban rail, on both sides are these informally organized transport systems, which provide what is called the last mile connectivity. And let me tell you, each one of these are like cities. Like I'll explain you the scale later. In this whole region, there is 1.6 million people staying. Okay. And they are served by 4 stations, both on the west and the east side. The next slide. The next, just go on through the animation. Just to tell you a little bit about the MMR. Okay. Like what we realized that nearly 10% of the people of the MMR who live in the MMR are dependent on providing transport mobility to people, informal shared mobility. So it's a large aspect of livelihood also which comes in these systems. The next slide. Okay, just to take you through some visuals so that you understand the scale. So this is the suburban rail, people alighting from the suburban rail and alighting into the station precinct. Okay, the next slide. Okay, so this is a top view. Okay, here you can see a lot of chaos. Okay, so you can see here, that's where the auto rickshaw system in the corner, okay, where people are lined up. And as the people are lined up, okay, there are also vegetable vendors along with them through people who sell their wares. Okay, a lot of them are informal and they are really jostling for space. And they are interconnected. These livelihoods are interconnected. The mobility attracts them. The mobility brings them here. So when we talk of placemaking, our question of placemaking actually gets embedded on the idea of equity. Like, as you can see, it's an extreme congestion. Okay. And these, as we have already understood, are informally organized, completely informally organized. The authorities actually are very, very sometimes negative about them and ambivalent about them. So they don't see that this is a possible place where place making and livelihood are interconnected. Okay, the next slide. Okay, just to take you briefly into a much more like human eye level. So that's where the transaction between the people who are going to their homes, who are getting their last mile connectivity through the auto rickshaw, they would buy something before they go home. So that's where the transaction happens. That's how the transaction happens. Okay, next slide. Okay, just to show you how actually we were able to build trust, in this system, we were working with already existing organizations who we made bridges with them. We actually started discussions with them, and slowly we actually worked with the unions who are there. Generally, that's how the auto rickshaw system is organized in this periphery of Mumbai. They're organized through unions. The unions, there might be many unions, and we have been able to choose some key unions that we have been working with. And what we have done is, through the unions, we access the drivers. And with the drivers, we actually train them towards mapping. We train the drivers' family who are there, who have learned, let's say, who are computer savvy, who know the mobile. We have actually trained them to use the mobile and be able to tell them that, yes, this can be a mode where you can help us. And we obviously paid them also. That's the reason why they joined us. So a lot of our funding also, we see to it that we use it to be able to start a much more a process of mapping, which is bottom up. So that's something very, very strong to SPARC. And this is a methodology that we have been able to sharpen through the years. So that's how we've been able to actually build trust with the community. And we've explained to them also that we will use this information to negotiate with the authorities, negotiate infrastructure with the authorities. That I'll come to the end for how we have been able to get their trust. The next slide. So this is a way we have used digital mapping. I won't go much into it. What we used is First is data collection, where we use simple things like GPS, ODK forms. Okay, we have used when we come to data processing and cleaning, we have used a technique called the GTFS, and we have used something called GTFX Flex, which can map demand-driven system. And finally, data analysis we have done through what is called, again, a digital tool called GTFS Kit, where we have used Python to be able to actually simulate and also interpolate data. So because we didn't get data of the complete system, we only have been able to get data, snapshot data of this system, but we were able to interpolate that and create a data for the complete day, especially a normal day. Next slide. So that's the context. 21 routes. As you can see, this when you zoom down, the yellow points are the points near the railway station. There's a railway station precinct. Nearly 6 to 7 points are points from where the auto rickshaw starts, and they go into these 21 routes. So that's how this is organized. Next slide. So just to break the stops into 3 types. One is the origin stops. Some are the destination stop where they end. That's where they actually provide the service, neighborhoods primarily, and then there are intermediate stops. So that's the type, the way we had understood the system and mapped the system. Next slide. Okay, just to tell you about the neighborhood a little bit. Here, there's a ward map here with the population. This neighborhood, which is served by 21 route, actually contains nearly 0.5 million people. So that's the amount of people that this 21 route serves. Okay, and just to explain you, this shows the hotspot of stops, which are mainly towards the station area. So let me tell you a little bit about the neighborhoods. Near the station area, these are middle class neighborhoods. And as you go towards the eastern side, what happens is these are industrial areas. So you will find that primarily the informal neighborhoods are located as you go towards the highway or the eastern side. So that's how this whole neighborhoods are spatially organized. The next slide. Okay, when we did this mapping exercise, what we found, the first finding, which is very important for us, that these routes are not more than 3 to 4 kilometers. So they only serve distances of 3 to 4 kilometers. That's the maximum route length that we have. Okay, there are some routes which obviously exceed that, but that would be the average. And this gave us a very important understanding of these systems, even in the city of Mumbai, how they are organized, what can be done with them. That was our first finding that we were able to establish. The next. So this is something, again, okay, which shows the volume of these auto rickshaws through the day. So this starts with the 00 hour, light up till 24 hours. And these are the 21 routes. These lines represent all the 21 routes. And as you can see, as the day progresses, during the night, somewhere during the night, that is 21 to 22 hours, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, the maximum trips happen at that point of time. In fact, it is nearly 400 trips in these routes per hour. And if you just divide 400 per hour, you can understand every second there are auto rickshaws leaving. So that's when we understood how this system works. We were imagining that it would be 2 peaks, one in the day, one in the evening, but no. And the peak actually happens late in the evening when people are returning home. And that's where we have a close relationship. In the down, you can see the relationship of the suburban trains also. The suburban trains are actually at its peak during the evening when it is returning people at crush density. So that's how we understand that there is a very strong correlation between the suburban rail and this system. That's what they work very interdependent on each other. Just the graph on the left, okay, these reds show what is called headway seconds. Headway seconds means nothing but the time it takes from one auto rickshaw to the other auto rickshaw. As you go through the reds are less time. And as you go to the green, that's more time. In the morning hours, obviously, it will be more time. The next slide. Okay, this just shows an animation, okay, of through the day. So we'll see how during the night it actually congests, the whole system congests. And mind you, this is where the digital tools have helped us to be able to recreate this animation. Okay, these are not schedule based, so we did not actually map every auto rickshaw. We were able to get a scenario and to just give you some very interesting statistics. Through the day, it travels, this whole system serves actually travels somewhere on 72,000 kilometers. That's unbelievable, but it does. Okay. And what we were ideally understanding is that there is 659 autos, this is not kilometers, 659 autos are required in ideal condition to serve this system. But the auto rickshaws are much, much more than that. Okay. And it actually shows the vulnerability of these systems, that people, the drivers, have to wait really long to be able to get their next passengers. Okay. So this is what it shows. It again comes back to, I think, 8 in the evening. And as you go through the morning hours, so that's the morning hours. So every 10 seconds is an animation. It's a GIF actually. So that's how it's organized. And as you can see through the afternoon, how generally slowly and steadily builds up. Okay. And as you see the evening, you will realize that it's absolutely there's congestion. The whole streets are in congestion due to the auto rickshaws. Mind you, there is no other understanding of traffic here. So you are nearly in 6:40 hours, 7. So you can see already the congestion increasing, 8 o'clock in the night. And as we go into 21 and 22, that's when the maximum traffic happens. And as you go ahead, again, it reduces. That's when it falls down. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, just to understand some things about like the economic models of these systems, we were trying to understand the profitability, because very importantly is the idea of like how much these drivers earn. So that's actually a continuing study and understanding how these people earn, but it was actually be able to map that, how every route and how profitable these routes are. And we found out actually the shorter routes are very, very profitable. As you can see, they carry a lot of people, and during the evening times, they serve the most amount of people and they become profitable. So it's not that the longest route becomes a profitable route. The next slide. Next slide. Okay, this actually shows accessibility, accessibility analysis, where we had actually mapped out each of the stop and been able to understand the isochrones around each of this, mainly to understand mobility aspects for women and children, because more than 5 minutes for a woman and children to travel into these stops become very difficult. And we see a lot of areas which are underserved. So this is an OSM map which shows all the road networks, and you can see the road networks as you go towards the highway and mainly the industrial area. Okay, these are very underserved, while the middle class neighborhood is very well served. So this is overserved while this is underserved. So that's something which we have been able to understand, and we understand that we need to address this problem, and that's something we will be able to actually engage with authorities after this finding. The next slide. Okay, this is the station precinct. Okay, I have been telling you actually, this is a project in the intersection of mobility and space making. Okay, generally the authorities concentrate towards improving the suburban rail system. Suburban rail in Mumbai is actually controlled by the national government, while the station area is controlled by the city government. Okay, there's always a conflict. What we saw in the station area are this complete self-organized system of auto rickshaws, then vendors who have self-organized this precinct. So a bigger question which comes in is, how can you make this place equitable? How can you bring design into this place? This place requires design. Okay, as I have shown you, you have seen some of those visuals. Okay, they are chaotic. Okay, they need design at all levels. So the primary question is, how can these precincts be designed, yet enabling these livelihoods to continue their own work? So that's a very important question to us. And I'll come to the last slide then. The last slide. Okay. So clearly, what are we doing? We are integrating technology, understanding how technology can improve like accessibility in these systems. How can this whole study be scaled citywide? We had only studied one like neighborhood, one such system in the eastern part, as we had showed you. Okay, how do we actually share the data? How do we make this data open? Because these are some important findings which are being done, which even authorities don't know what they are. So that's something we are trying, how to share the data and like create mobility-based understanding of public realms, because this is so integral to Mumbai. You need to understand public realm through the lens of mobility, but it needs to be based in equity. So with that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Aneerudha, for this very important presentation on and fantastic work on how the Living Lab actually can connect place and innovation for social sustainability. Thank you. I would also like to add that we will share a short film that Aneerudha has presented us with, so that you will better understand the presentation and the work that has been done. So I think everyone is back. Welcome back to the main room, and very quickly, any reflections or common understanding for living labs and placemaking, or if you discussed perhaps other methods that you would like to share with us, please feel free, just raise your hand, and we would like to listen to what you have discussed. But that's just an option. We just had a few minutes that we wanted to ask you the question. So if you would like to share something, please feel free. Anyone?
Or maybe some.
Oh, Marva, please.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Nice to see you again, Lydia, Emma, and everyone.
Likewise.
So I guess we had a very interesting discussion in our group, and there has been kind of consensus that that there is this disconnection between the reality of communities and societies on ground and in the realm of housing and realm of also public spaces, and the systems that could allow the implementation of the gathered knowledge, as we do here. And I guess also we also I don't know, I'm a bit shy to speak on the behalf of a whole group, so I would invite the members of the group to also contribute and say and correct me if I'm mistaken. But also there has been a discussion about the importance of creating a connection, a stronger connection between infrastructure projects and the residential areas and the other sectors of the city, if you will. So I was personally very impressed by Aneerudha Paul's presentation, where he focused on, he brought into the presentation the idea of building trust, while also using technology and addressing the question of mobility. And I thought that was very sensitive and enlightened to highlight, because we often see that in especially in infrastructure projects, that disruption of the existing systems and the existing natural processes of living are often disrupted and ignored. So but he actually left us a bit hanging there, because he left us with an open-ended question when he said that how to create or develop this infrastructure project of the railway and the last mile project without disruption of the existing systems. But actually we didn't know what was the answer. Perhaps that's a very important question, and it's a question in my view should be asked on a larger scale of the planning of the whole city as well.
Thank you, Marva. And Aneerudha, now you have something to think of and get back to the community. Or please feel free as well to connect with Aneerudha. This is Again, this is about, to connect and share thoughts and inspiration between each other. I will not talk much because we have over exceeded the time by 1 minute. I will leave over to you, Emma, to close the event for today. And from my side, thank you so much. Emma.
Thank you very much. I won't keep you. I just wanted to say thank you to our presenters today. I really saw that some of the main points in wrapping up is around that you need to start with the place, the tangible place that you can understand, that community engagement is at the heart of placemaking. Placemaking can be a simple way to try things out, to change people's mind. And also, I think the importance of informality and looking at placemaking and how it is intertwined with equity and livelihoods was a really important aspect that we're taking away with us today. But thank you all very much. Our next community of learning is actually a physical study visit. So it will be on the Sunday, the 25th of May in Gothenburg. So for our Gothenburg-based participants or network members, and also the attendees of the VREF Global Summit, it's a side event connected to that. We hope to see you there. We will be sending out an invite with some more information about that. It is connected to the PRISM side event as well that Aneerudha's project is part of. So we'll be sending out more information about that and continue the discussions with you. If you haven't already, you can join up for our mailing list. And I'm just putting the link into the chat there. But we won't keep you. Thank you very much for your attendance today. I hope you found the discussions useful, and keep in touch.